All right, you guys, welcome back. Today we have Harrison Biddle from our reverse selling community. Harrison, I appreciate you jumping on, taking some few minutes to walk real estate agents through what you're finding that is working the best to go out there and build a listing-based business. So I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, man, really appreciate it. Glad to be here.
For sure. So what market are you in? How long have you been selling real estate? Give us a little context of what that looks like.
Yeah, so Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, very heavy resort and retirement market. Got licensed July of 2020. So we're going on a little bit more than 2 years. I was actually 18 when I got licensed. I'm only 21 right now.
Got it. Very cool. Yeah, Myrtle Beach. I always tell my wife, it's probably one of the places that I would, if we moved, I would like to sell real estate in. It's got a lot of different benefits. And so you've been in the business for about 2 years and you joined our coaching community. How long ago has it been now?
Not long at all, maybe a month, maybe a little bit more than a month.
Okay. So I want to talk about a post you put into our Facebook community in a second, but I want to help the audience that might listen to this or watch this replay on YouTube. What led you to our reverse selling community in the first place?
Yeah, so this year has been an extremely successful year for me, but it was extremely buyer heavy. And yeah, I was seeing some fruits of my labor. I had made some good money, had a ton of sales, but I was running ragged, right? I mean, the average buyer takes, I think, is like 50 hours of your time. So it's just running myself ragged. And so for me, I felt like to get where I wanted to be with the freedom in the business, the freedom that everyone says we have, it comes more from the listing side than the buyer side, and I can control my inventory and things of that matter.
Got it. So you said to yourself, okay, I want to build a listing-based business. How did you maybe find out about the work that I do with people that introduce you to what it is that we do?
Yeah, 100% YouTube.
Got it.
Just on YouTube, watching videos and things like that. When I'm ever feeling down, I hop on YouTube and watch some videos similar to a lot of the stuff that you post to get me motivated to get back on the phone or wake up excited to do it all again the next day.
So what's funny is like, and I mean this, like, there's a lot of voices out there, and some of the stuff that I say, a lot of people challenge or push back. There's just so many people out there to learn from, none of which is right or wrong, good or bad. I am curious, what was it about me that you said, all right, I want to work with this dude versus everybody else out there?
Yeah. So the big thing was language, right? So I learned very early on in the business, the power of language. And for me, there's a bunch of people that do what you do and attempt to do what you do at a high level. And what I found was, obviously looking at some other people and things like that, it was the way that you approach the systems, the way that your scripts are put together and everything that fit me and who I am and how I work and sell real estate. And so, you're always going to be your best when you're just being the true you that you are. And so it was easiest for me to do that inside your system.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So let's unpack your business, Harrison. So I got your post pulled up right here. It was really cool. You said 20 days in, just signed my 4th listing. The harder you work, the luckier you get. So let's talk about, you're transitioning your business from buyer heavy to hopefully listing heavy so that you can control your time, your income, things of that nature. What sources of business are you working right now?
Right now, I'm working predominantly for sell by owners, and I'll do some circle prospecting or bullseye prospecting.
Got it.
That's pretty much all I'm doing right now. I've got some sphere business and stuff just from being in the business for a little bit of time that obviously I'm always working with, but predominantly for sell by owners and some circle prospecting.
And are you still working with buyer clients, or you said to yourself, I'm going all in on listings?
I'm definitely all in on listings. I'm not doing any what I would call proactive work to get buyers. Now, if a buyer comes to me and it falls in my lap, 100% I'm going to do that. For example, today, I had a buyer today that wrote a contract on a new construction home. I didn't leave my office chair for it though. So situations like that, never going to say no to something like that.
Yeah. It makes a ton of sense and you shouldn't. So, all right. So first 30 days, you're able to secure about a listing a week. I really want to unpack the tactical things that the audience can pull from it. So what are you doing first and foremost to get into contact with these home sellers? Are you calling? Are you knocking doors? Are you texting? Are you sending messages on Instagram? What are you doing?
I'm huge on just calling. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll do some texting and some video texts and stuff like that. If I have an email, I'll send some things. But for me, I'm call heavy. A lot of times I'm going to call 2 or 3 times the first day that I have them, maybe mix in more calls, but at least 1 call a day. I don't do any more than 2 weeks. Once they get to 2 weeks, if I haven't made contact with them and I've made at least 1 attempt every single day, I'm going to move them to another folder.
Yep.
I'll reach back out in the future, but I'm not going to hit them as heavy anymore.
Got it. All right. So break down kind of your strategy, your mindset on what you've learned with that first conversation that either does one of 2 things. It either leads you to an appointment right here on the first call,
yep,
or it leads you to a high quality lead that later turns into an appointment. What is maybe some tactical things you're doing on that first call that you're finding helpful?
I'm just real with them. I'm not, I tell them I don't have a buyer. I'm not trying to, fake my way into an appointment. Right.
Yep.
And then just push a listing presentation on them when I'm there. Right. I want to spend my time on quality appointments. And so I spend my time on quality leads and lead follow-up. So it's just being real with them. I just tell them upfront what I'm trying to do, how I want to help them. Right. And I truly want to help them. If you don't believe that, they're going to know that as well. Right.
Yeah.
So just coming from a place of value, seeing anything that I can do to help them today, tomorrow, whenever it is, just letting them know that my door is always open and I'm always ready to help.
Yeah, I love it. So have you taken the approach so far to, from the first call, try to, because there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm curious what you're doing that you're finding most useful. Yeah. Are you positioning what you're doing to set the appointment on that first call to uncover a listing opportunity, or are you presenting that for the future on that first call?
On the first call, I'm going for, a legit listing appointment.
Yeah.
I am confident in my phone skills to uncover something, over the phone. Don't get me wrong. If somebody's giving me something and they're maybe not up to, a listing appointment right this second, but I still think it may be something in the future, I'm definitely going to take a preview appointment, if you will.
Yeah. And I think that's a smart move. Anybody with the experience that you have, with the confidence that you have, the skills that you have, it just makes sense to position what we do in a way that serves the seller, which is by listing and selling the home. What percentage of your listing appointments are coming from the first conversation versus lead follow-up? If you had to guess.
It's about 50-50 right now.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm seeing with a lot of the top producers. It's half and half right now. And I think that number has grown because it used to be like a 90-10, that like 90% of your appointments would come out of lead follow-up. Yeah. It'd be so hard to get a now listing appointment because the market's shifting. And so a lot of these people are taking you up on it. So if I'm somebody in the audience right now, the question I'm asking to you and I is like, well, okay, cool. Well, what are you saying? What are you doing that has these people invite you to come over to do a listing appointment on the very first conversation? So maybe we could do a role play, maybe not, but give us the approach and the mindset and the conversation and the way you approach it that might have a for sale by owner invite you over, Harrison, the first time you've ever called them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I follow the if I'm doing it for sale by owner, I'm going to follow the 2.0 script verbatim.
Got it.
I mean, there may be a couple words that are changed just because it's the way that I've naturally spoken it. And then from there, it's just, like I said, just being real with them.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to fake anything. I'm very real. Like I said, one of the reasons that I've chosen to go into your program is because the script fits the way I talk already. So I'm just being me. Right. Yeah. The script doesn't work for somebody. They need to make it work for them. If they've got to fine tune a couple words, a couple phrases and things, that's what's always going to be best. Got it.
So if you're using script 2.0, you might say something like this. You might say, if you're talking to a for sale by owner, listen, Harrison, I know that you had mentioned you're trying to sell this thing on your own. I respect it. I guess my question for you is if there was maybe another option out there that would cause your property to sell, you get what you need from the property, even maybe after paying somebody like me. Is that something you'd be open to at least meeting and looking further into and be honest? Is that something like you're doing or saying on the phone?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the exact thing that I'm saying is just straight from the script. You know, if you're unable to sell it on your own in the next few weeks, would you sit down with me at that point in time to look at some other options? It's just simply that. And
Yep.
95% of people say yes.
I was going to say they almost all say yes. And so,
Yeah. I mean, it's not, my thing is you miss every shot you don't take, right? So
yeah.
if you ask the question, most times you're actually going to get the answer you're looking for.
Right. I love it. So that is the qualifying question to identify, do we have an opportunity? Now, when you find that people say yes to that, what is it maybe that you're saying that gets them to agree to an appointment on that first call?
Yeah. So the big thing is obviously I need to figure out some motivation after that point. So that's very early on in the call. And then I want to figure out some motivation. There's a ton of people in my market that's second homes.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them are, I don't need to sell. I'll sell it. If it sells, it sells, right? I'm okay to sit down with you in the future, but I'm not in any rush. You know, maybe I've had somebody tell me, yeah, if it's not sold this time next year, we can sit down. You know, I mean, that
Right.
happens. So I need to figure out some motivation, and then it's just tying into that motivation.
Yeah.
To figure out somebody has real motivation, it gets very, very easy to set an appointment, in my opinion.
I totally agree.
It's just basically look, hey, I might be in the area sometime later this week, maybe on Wednesday or Thursday. Could I swing by in the afternoon? Would 2 or 4 be better?
Yeah.
Right. Just leaving it at that. If they ask, why do you want to meet? I mean, I'm going to tell them. And then obviously I'm going to go into a listing appointment script once we get further down.
Yep. Yeah. I love it. Very cool. All right. So then let's talk about a little bit around what happens under lead follow-up. If you don't set the appointment on the first call, what are some best practices that you find in lead follow-up that lead to appointments later down the road?
Yeah. So I love calling on Fridays and just being super excited about how many showings my listings have scheduled for the weekend.
I love it.
Most of the time they never have any. And sometimes they're going to say, yeah, I've got tons. And then you follow up on Monday and you're super excited. You're like, hey, I had 2 listings go under contract this weekend, or I had X amount of showings. How many did you have? How was your weekend? Oh, it was pretty slow. Oh, you know, and then just getting into that conversation. So I just kind of base it off of like, I'm performing in my listings just as I'll perform for you.
Yeah, I love it. And once you communicate that, to your point, the ones that have more motivation tend to show themselves, right? Because when they respond to the way you're communicating, Harrison, they're saying, wow, really? I mean, we were really slow. Then you've been trained to then ask for an appointment. Well, listen, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Well, how about we sit down and I can show you what I'm doing on my listings?
Yep.
If nothing at all, you'll grab a couple tips and tricks you can do for your own.
Yeah, exactly. No downside. Yeah. Smart. I love it. All right. So when you go to the appointment, this is the thing I think most agents really struggle with is when the rubber meets the road, regardless of how they find themselves on listing appointments, whether it's sphere of influence, referrals, whatever, right? Once they get to that appointment, what are you finding? Because you primarily were working with buyers for the past couple of years. Yeah. Now you're having to communicate your value completely differently when you're holding the listing. Mm-hmm. What is it that you're doing at appointments that helps you to win listings?
Yeah. So in the past with buyers, I learned very quickly. I mean, I can work a buyer very easily right now. Buyer consultations are one of my favorite things in the world to do. So I've become accustomed to presenting and presenting my value. When I represent a buyer, obviously, I'm sure, as you know, as a lot of agents know, over the last 12, 18 months, a lot of people have been dropping commissions. For me, if the commission's 2.5%, the buyer's going to cover the extra 0.5%, right? Sure. So I've been able to sit down with buyers, have them cover extra commission, which they've never done before. So I'm extremely confident when it comes to presenting.
Yeah.
And so I just walk into the appointment. I'm just, like I said, I'm me in Myrtle Beach. I mean, this is probably as nice as I'm ever going to be dressed up, shirt untucked, a nice pair of pants and some shoes. I mean, I'm not walking in with a 3-piece suit or anything. I find that intimidates a lot of people around here because we're in a beach town, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just being real with them. I mean, I'll sit there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just talking, just becoming their friend. And then it just makes everything else so much easier.
Yeah. So you're really good at getting people, which has been proven to be very influential, which is to get people to like you, right? Because people do business with people they like. And so, yeah. I love it. And I got to ask you around pricing, right? So as the market continues to shift, I don't know how things look in Myrtle Beach these days, but what are you maybe doing or saying or showing or communicating to a seller rather to help them understand this shifting real estate market, to get the seller to price the property right to cause it to sell?
Yeah, so a lot of what I'm doing is, obviously showing a ton of market stats and how since really April or May, our market's been definitely on a downward trajectory. Compared to the rest of the country, it's not that crazily down, but it is
Right.
down nonetheless compared to where we were April, May. That was kind of our peak. And so what I'm doing is a lot of the comps that you're seeing are still from April, May,
Right.
March, February, all those times. And so what I do is I just basically use percentages. I'm showing, look, I get that this comp sold at 350 in February, right? But interest rates were 3.5%. There was more buyer demand. There was less inventory and prices have dropped, I don't know, 10, 15% since then. So listing at 350, even though you have the same floor plan, doesn't make sense anymore. Right. And it's just showing them facts and getting them to agree to it. And like you said, when they like you, it becomes a lot easier to get them to do that.
Yeah, I love it. So if you could rewind maybe 2 years, go back and get licensed all over again, would you do things the same? Would you do them differently? Would you focus on buyers like you did? Would you come out of the gate and focus on listings? What would you do?
I would 100% come out the gate and focus on listings. Like I said, I got extremely burnt out with buyers this year. Before I joined, your program, I had done 40 deals for like 12 and a half million, something in that ballpark. Roughly 80% of those were buyers.
Sure.
It takes a lot of time. I think it was like 32 was the number. It just takes a lot of time. Don't get me wrong, they're great numbers. But for me, I almost would rather do a little bit less and be more listings.
Right.
Just frankly. And that's just coming from sheer experience of having to deal with that many buyers at a time. If I have 50 listings, they can all be shown in a day. If I have 50 buyers, I'm only showing 2.
That's right.
It's just an efficiency thing.
Yeah. So you would come out of the gate as a brand new agent and focus on listings. Yeah, I love it. The question is, okay, cool. If a new agent's watching this, they say, okay, I agree, listings where I need to focus. What advice could you offer to a brand new licensee who's never worked with a buyer or seller ever, who says, okay, I do want to work with listings? What would you tell them to do?
One of the 2 things is one, you really have to come from a place of value. If you don't really mean what you say, everyone you talk to is going to know it. Another thing is just you really got to get your phone skills very good. You need to role play daily with anybody and everybody that you can find. A lot of people will say, oh, if I can just get them in front of me, I'll lock it down.
Right.
You can't get them in front of you until you talk to them on the phone and set an appointment. Right. And so that's what always comes first. And so if you can knock down that part of your business, everything else becomes so much easier, even if you're not a great presenter.
Yeah.
You will hit enough,
Absolutely.
Obviously, you need to perfect your presentation skills to get more and more and more, and you'll do that over time. It takes practice.
Yeah.
But another thing is don't be a perfectionist.
I love it. It's exactly right.
People are like, oh, I don't want to get on the phone because what if they say this objection? Who cares? Be a person. I've never heard that one before. Just be honest with the people. Don't try to be a perfectionist. That's just a fancier word of procrastinating.
Yeah, that's great advice. I totally agree. And so as you look ahead, right? So as we get later in this year into 2023, what are maybe some of the goals that you're thinking about for yourself now that you're so focused on listing? Because you probably, if not already, understand that the best buyer business comes from sellers. It's unbelievable.
100%. 100%.
So walk us through.
From a sign call is ridiculous.
It's so much better, right? I don't know how you were generating buyer business in the past, but as you look ahead to your listing business, what do you think is possible? What is the goal for 2023?
Yeah. So the goal this year was 40 deals at 12 million, and sitting here today, I'm at 44 for 14 million.
Sure.
Again, a lot of those are buyers, right? I think only 11 or 12 are sellers, but as you mentioned, just in roughly 30 days in your program, I'm averaging a listing a week right now. So I definitely want to do that on a long-term scale, right? So I would love if I could just sell 3 listings a month. Yeah. Right. It'd be 36 sold a month based on, projections and things like that. I'm going to need to take somewhere in the 40 to 45 range to actually sell all of those, if not maybe 50. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm shooting for is, sign a listing 1 a week. sell 75% of the listings that I take, and I'll hit 36. And like you just said, I'm going to get buyer deals from them. I have some sphere business. I have some other avenues of lead generation as well. And those will kind of wrap up, if I have some buyers and things like that. The goal total would probably be around 50 transactions next year, but definitely 36 on the listing side.
Yeah. And I think what would happen is what my focus is on with guys like you is because people, you're right, they get caught up in, 44. I mean, what's wrong with that? Well, 44 buyers versus 44 sellers is a completely different world, different life. Even if you did 50 is a great business, by the way. If you did 50, you probably make more money, work half as much, have some leverage, because you got to start thinking about when you start listing 40 or 50 homes a year, all the buyer business that comes from that. You probably can start to think about, all right, do I start to bring people into my organization to help leverage out of the buy side, right? So there's all of that you have to look forward to as well, which is going to be super exciting.
Yep.
And so I love that. And I think that the only question I have left for you is when it comes to lead generation, right? I think a lot of people, to your point, spend hours on YouTube looking for the secret sauce, or what they're hoping to be the secret sauce that like, what is the least I have to do? The least amount of pain that I can go through to be a successful real estate salesperson. And they bounce from one thing to the next, constantly looking for different things, just to come back to the fact, like, you got to have voice-to-voice conversations over this thing if you're going to really win. Have you tried anything else out there? What advice do you have for agents that are chasing the shiny objects? What are your thoughts on lead generation?
Yeah. So shiny objects, there are none. They don't exist. If they are, it's a scam, right? Just back to the matter. For me, a lot of people, like you said, want to go through the least amount of pain to have the most amount of success. The more pain you have, the more success you have. I've learned that through my career. My short time in this career is the more pain that I have, the more uncomfortable that I get, the more I'm going to grow, the better I'm going to be, right? The tough conversations, especially, recently with, hey, your appraisal came in $50,000 low.
Right.
Something out. Having tough conversations like that, instead of running from them, run into them. It's very similar to, a buffalo, right? A buffalo runs into the storm rather than away from it. It shortens the pain of that. And that's just the way that I look at it. Approach everything head on, nose to the grindstone. The most pain that you have, the more successful you're going to be. So stop trying to look for what's going to be the easiest thing to do. Look for the hardest.
That's right.
Look for the hardest, take risks, calculated risks, obviously. Don't be stupid, but it'll all pay off as long as you put the work in.
Yeah. And I agree with you.
Top producers and its work ethic.
That's exactly right. I mean, if you look at the phone, right, and everybody's looking to avoid it, because I believe there's two truths. One, it is the hardest. And to your point, it is the most effective.
Of course.
That's the thing. And to your point, it's like things that are hardest in life are that way on purpose because they produce the best results.
Yep. Every single time.
So, and all the stuff that leads you to that perception that go this way, this is easier, always leads to little to no results. Always.
Yeah. Every single time. Every single time. Don't get me wrong. A blind squirrel is going to find a nut.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have a bit of success. But if you really want to be great and achieve greatness, you've got to go for the things that, like you said, cause you the most pain and are the hardest to do, because that normally means it's the most effective. Yeah.
Harrison, listen, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for all the nuggets you've dropped. We appreciate you and all that you bring to our community. It'll be exciting. I'd love to have you back on the podcast at the end of 2023 and really, really walk people through what building a listing-based business is all about. But thank you for taking the time with us today.
Of course. Thank you, man.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.